Happy Tuesday. I got some very observant, perceptive listeners and viewers. If you look over my right shoulder, you'll see I got my movie poster, Talk Dirty to Me. And I always have that on my wall. Now, a couple nights ago, it fell off because the adhesive strips, these adhesive type strips, I had to hold it on the wall. I guess they wore out. Now, half of me knew when I uploaded the video that some people would notice it, but man, people noticed that quick. They was like, Alan, there's something missing behind you. Few people knew exactly what was missing. Other people, they couldn't place what was missing, but they were like, something's missing. They were like, Alan, something's missing. Yes, my Talk Dirty poster. You can say that's the movie that both changed my life and influenced my entire career. Yep. If there's a single movie that changed my life and not only influenced my behavior towards women, but you could say it was the first seed to inspire me to become a book author and dating coach, was when I saw the movie Talk Dirty to Me, and then about just over 2 years later, I saw the sequel called Talk Dirty to Me Part 2. Yeah, to give you the backstory for the millionth time, yeah. The first time I saw Talk Dirty to Me was the summer after I graduated from high school, which was 1981. Yeah, I think it was July of 1981 was when I first saw Talk Dirty to Me. Yeah, I saw Talk Dirty to Me in July of 1981. And then I saw the sequel, Talk Dirty to Me Part 2, in either October, I think it was October of 1983. October of 1983 was when I saw the sequel. Yeah, those two movies were the movies that had the most impact on my entire Mode 1 philosophy. Because it's funny, I was just talking about this in a recent video. Somebody asked me in a recent video, they said, Alan, I hear a lot of dating coaches talk about they had at least one mentor, someone who basically taught them all the ins and outs of dealing with women. Who was your mentor? And I always tell people, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a real life mentor. I mean, my brother had given me some advice when I was in high school, in my early college years but most of his advice was related to maintaining a girlfriend, dealing with a long-term serious girlfriend. But as far as advice related to scoring casual sex, I never had a mentor related to casual sex. The closest thing I had as a mentor for hooking up with women for casual sex was John Leslie's character in the movie Talk Dirty to Me and the sequel Talk Dirty to Me Part 2. But yeah, that was the first time I had ever seen somebody, whether it be a real life person or a movie character, be that direct with women. Yeah, that's the first time I had ever seen somebody exhibit what's known as direct verbal game, was when I saw John Leslie in Talk Dirty to Me. I remember my mind was blown. I remember watching that movie, I was just like, that's basically how I was almost the whole movie like. I mean, because again, not only had I never seen anybody in real life be that direct, I had never seen a fictional character in a movie be that direct. I had never seen a guy talk to a woman and basically within the first 3 to 5 minutes of his very first conversation with a woman, tell that woman he wanted to fuck her. I had never seen that. In all my 4 years of high school, I had never seen a guy just walk up to a woman that he didn't know that a woman he never talked to before and just tell her straight up that he wanted to fuck her. I'd never seen that before. So yeah, when I watched Talk Dirty to Me, man, that was the first time I ever saw somebody use direct verbal game. And yeah, when I first started being on one, that's basically what I was doing. I was just basically, you could say, emulating John Leslie. In a nutshell, that's what I did. Like for the first, I'd say roughly first 2 or 3 years that I started being on one before I kind of, you could say, developed my own style, I was just basically emulating John Leslie. Well, I was just basically emulating him. And that's why in the acknowledgement section of my 1999 ebook version of Mode 1, in my 2006, who do I give a shout out to? Both John Leslie as well as Anthony Spinelli. Anthony Spinelli is the person who actually wrote and directed Talk Dirty to. Now, he didn't direct the sequel. Somebody else did. He actually directed his own sequel called Nothing to Hide. Nothing to Hide, which was technically, a lot of people consider that technically the sequel to Talk Dirty to Me. But yeah, I give a shout out to John Leslie, and I got some chicken on my tea. I was just eating chicken wings. Now, you know what that's going to lead me into. You know what, yeah, you can guess what that's going to lead me into. Yep. I don't care who gets pissed off that I'm bringing up his name again. I don't care who gets pissed off. If you don't like my videos, leave. Don't like my videos, leave. What am I referring to? I had 2 guys come in my comments. You won't be able to see it in yesterday's video because I deleted their comments. But I had 2 guys, which is not many, just 2. But I had 2 guys come in my comment section criticizing me. Number one, both of them were trying to act like they were bigger fans of mine than they really were. I know who's my true fans. I know who's my true, loyal, long-term fans. I know their usernames because I see them over and over again. And both of these guys were usernames I've only seen in my comment section like 2 or 3 times before. But both guys came in my comment. One guy came in my comment section. He said, "Alan, I got a lot of love and respect for you, but I gotta criticize you because in the last month, pretty much every video you've done, you found a way to mention alpha male strategies, and I'm just tired of it. All you do is bash alpha male strategies in every video you've done, starting with mid-July up until now. That's all you do is bash alpha male strategies, and I'm tired of it, and I think this is going to be the last video of yours I ever watch." Then I had another guy, also yesterday, came in my comment section saying, "Alan, I own all 4 of your audiobooks, and I think they are rock solid audiobooks full of great knowledge, wisdom, insight, and advice. But if he says, what did he say? He said, it saddens me to tell you, I just unsubscribed from your YouTube channel because you insist on always criticizing and insulting alpha male strategies in every video you've done over the last 3 to 4 weeks, instead of concentrating on just enhancing your own brand, is very disappointing to me." And yeah, he said he unsubscribed from my channel. So number one, neither one of those guys were Patreon subscribers of mine, so I don't give a fuck. I know that sounds kind of cold-hearted, but I've said this multiple times before. Now, I am disappointed at minimum and sometimes hurt when I lose, anytime I lose a long-time Patreon subscriber of mine. Guys who are Patreon subscribers of mine for like 3 months or longer. Anytime somebody has been a Patreon subscriber of mine for 3 months or longer, and I find out that they unsubscribe from my Patreon page, yeah, at minimum, that disappoints me. And in some cases, I actually feel hurt. So I am genuinely affected when I lose a Patreon subscriber. But in contrast, YouTube subscribers could give a fuck. Honestly, I'm just going to keep it real with you. I could give a fuck. Since I got on YouTube, I've never cared about YouTube subscribers. Like, I hear guys, some content creators bragging about how many YouTube subscribers they get. I ain't never cared about YouTube subscribers. The main reason why is because I don't make no money off of YouTube subscribers. YouTube subscribers don't put no money in my pocket. Now, some people, they make money off of YouTube subscribers. And for those who do, more power to them. I don't make any money off of YouTube subscribers. I really don't. I don't make any money off of YouTube subscribers. I don't give a fuck about YouTube subscribers. Anybody who's a YouTube subscriber of mine, but they're not a Patreon subscriber of mine, could give two flying fucks. Could give two flying fucks. Could give two flying fucks. Don't care. If I lost between now and the end of the month, if I was to lose 1,000 of my YouTube subscribers, I would not care. And that's the honest, sincere truth. I would be more upset if I was to lose 25 of my Patreon subscribers than if I was to lose 2,000 of my YouTube subscribers. And that's real honest truth. Between the two, I would be more hurt if between now and the end of the month that I lost 15 to 25 of my Patreon subscribers than if I lost between 1,000 to 2,000 of my YouTube subscribers. I don't care about YouTube subscribers. Don't care. For starters, I've been telling guys for the last 2 years, man, that my YouTube videos are not the place to come if you want purely advice-driven videos. Even though I drop a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and insight and advice, as a lot of my followers have pointed out in the comment section, there's a lot of videos where I drop a lot of golden nuggets of wisdom, but this is not the place if you want purely advice. If you want purely advice-driven videos, then you need to become a Patreon subscriber and look at all my current and past Patreon exclusive videos. Look at all my current and past Patreon exclusive videos. YouTube, I start saying this as far back as summer of 2018. YouTube is for me to talk about beefs that I'm having with people. Beefs that I'm having with people. Stuff that's in the news. Stuff that's in the news. Or feedback from my listeners and viewers, and more specifically, my haters and critics. That's the main three things why I do YouTube videos. Is to talk about some beef I'm having at the moment with somebody. Whether it be another dating coach, another YouTube content creator, or whoever else in the manosphere. A beef I'm having. Something interesting in the news. Or to talk about feedback and critical comments I've received from listeners and viewers in general, and more specifically from those I refer to as my haters and harsh critics. Other than that, man, I ain't on YouTube to just purely drop advice. Fuck that. So anyway, here's what I'm going to talk about Feliciano T. Collins, his real name. I like to highlight his real name. Feliciano T. Collins, who goes by the pseudonym Alpha Male Strategies. I take offense to these two guys Now, if your criticism of me is that I'm talking about him a lot, that's, for better or for worse, that's a valid criticism. Because I have talked about him, starting like the one guy said, starting with roughly mid-July up until now. I think it started with the video I did the day of my wedding. I talked about him in the last 5 to 10 minutes of that video. And pretty much every video I've done since, with the possible exception of maybe one, I've brought up his name, if only briefly. So yeah, it's true. So in terms of how frequently I've talked about him, I'll own up to that criticism if people want to say I've talked about him a lot. But as far as the criticism that I've bashed him or have done nothing but insulted him or spoke negatively about him, that is false. That is false. Here's the deal, man. There's a difference between laying out facts and laying out opinionated comments and personal insults. Those are two different things. There's a difference between laying out facts and expressing negative, opinionated comments about something and personal insults about something. No less than 90% of the time that I talk about AMS, I'm just laying out factual information. I said worse only about maybe 5 to 10% of the time have I added in my own personal opinions about him that, and some of them might have been, critical or negative. But 90% of the stuff I've talked about AMS has been just factual stuff. You can't consider factual stuff to be representative of me bashing him or insulting him. That's bullshit. In other words, if a guy named Joe Johnson robs a bank and in the process of robbing that bank commits murder, and I get on a video and talk about the fact that this guy, Joe Johnson, robbed a bank and in the process of robbing that bank committed murder, that's not me insulting him. That's not me speaking negatively about him or talking down about him. That's me laying out the facts of what happened. That's what news channels do. If you ever watch network news, that's what news either does, or at minimum, that's what they're supposed to do. That's what network news is supposed to do, is just lay out the facts of what happened. Now, realistically, in recent years, you have had some news channels that have added their own spin to things, their own opinionated, slanted spin to the news that makes it come across as opinionated rather than factual, which is why, that's one of the reasons why you have President Trump calling certain news fake news. Like the two networks I'll say off the top of my head would be, number one, Fox News. Fox News does not just tell you the facts. What they do is they share news that has an opinionated slant to it, which is a right-wing oriented slant to it. That's what Fox News is known for. Then conversely, CNN is almost just the opposite. They're known for presenting news that has a left-wing slant to it. It's not totally objective and facts-oriented. They have more or less a left-wing liberal slant to it, in the same way Fox News has a right-wing conservative slant to it. But ideally, any news network show is just supposed to present the facts of a story without any of their own biases or opinions incorporated into that. They're supposed to just present the facts. And again, going back to AMS, again, no less than 90% of my discussion about AMS has been objective and factual. It has not been opinionated with any type of negative slant to it. It's been factual. Here's a few facts, and some of them are going to be repetitive, but I'm going to lay out things that are factual. If I had to go in chronological order, the first factual thing about AMS used to comment in my comment section quite a bit. between in the months of September, October, and November of 2017, Feliciano T. Collins, aka Alpha Male Strategy, used to be all up in my comment section. He used to watch almost every video I did during that 3-month span of September, October, and November of 2017. He used to always be in my comment section. That's where I first ran into him. So that's fact number one. That's not opinion. That's a fact. He used to be in my comment section. Another fact. AMS started gaining popularity by criticizing dating coaches. Before he actually started marketing himself as a dating coach himself, he used to harshly criticize dating coaches. That's not an opinion of mine. That is a fact. That is a fact. Get it? Got it? Good. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. That's not me bashing him. That's a fact. He built, matter of fact, somebody just was in Bernard Riley's comment section. One of my followers, I think his name is Dennis. He pointed that out. Just in the last few days, a guy, one of my followers named Dennis pointed that out on Bernard Riley's channel in the comment section. He was talking about the guy I was referring to in my video yesterday, who I called Dumbass, and he compared him to AMS. But yeah, that's how AMS first became popular, man. He first started out criticizing dating coaches, which is one of the reasons why I'll never have full respect for him. I don't respect guys who criticize dating coaches and then turn around and try to market themselves as a dating coach themselves. Like just in the last couple of days, there's a guy, I'm not going to say his name, but there's a black male content creator that used to criticize the idea of self-improvement and personal development. And now I see him marketing himself as a person who's about self-improvement and personal development on his Patreon page. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. But yeah, that's how AMS was. AMS used to criticize dating coaches. So that's another fact. Then later, I would say start with no later than early to mid-January of 2018, he started marketing himself as a dating coach. Because previously, he just used to market himself as a health and fitness trainer. Then starting with somewhere between early to mid-January of 2018, that's when he started marketing himself as a dating coach. Another fact. What's something else that's factual about him? The biggest thing to do with our personal beef that's factual, not opinionated, that's factual is in spring of 2018, you could divide all guys that followed him and followed me into 3 categories. There were some guys that were exclusively following him, some guys that were exclusively following me, and then there was a small group of guys, I don't know the exact number, I'd say somewhere between 50 to 100 guys that were simultaneously following both of us. Yeah, there was a small group of guys that were following both of us. They were equally following me and him at the same time. Now, see, here's the thing. A lot of people think I was the first one to call out Alpha Male Strategies about stealing content from me, stealing my talking points. Actually, that's not true. It was actually that group of followers that I just described. It was a small group of guys that were following both him and me, and those guys start calling him out, starting with around, starting with as early as February, no later than March, starting with, around February, I'd say roughly between mid-February, early to mid-February, all the way up until about mid-March, if not a little later, a lot of guys who were following both him and me start going over to his channel. He even mentioned that. I don't feel like playing the clip again, but I played a clip in a recent video where he said that. He said, this is what he said. He said, I got a lot of followers of Alan Roger Currie that are starting to accuse me of stealing Alan Roger Currie's advice. That's not 100% true. It was actually guys that were following both him and me. So it wasn't guys who were just exclusively following me, because if they were exclusively following me, How would they know if he's stealing my stuff? Because they wouldn't be paying attention to him if they were exclusively following me. You gotta use your head sometimes. It wasn't guys who were exclusively following me that started killing. It was guys who were following both of us. Guys who were already familiar with my books. And what happened was they started listening to AMS. And they was like, wait a minute. Dude, that's Alan Roger Currie shit you saying right now. That's Alan Roger Currie stuff you talking about. Yeah, because basically what he was doing was he was starting to repeat a lot of content from the first 4 chapters of my book, The Possibility of Sex. But he wasn't always giving me credit for it. He was repeating and regurgitating a lot of the content from the first 4 chapters of my book, The Possibility of Sex, but he wasn't giving me proper credit attribution. And bottom line, a lot of guys who were following both him and me start calling him out on it. They was like, dude, that's Alan Roger Currie shit, man. Like anytime he was talking about something to do with placing value on your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, everybody knew that was my shit. I have that in 2 of my audiobooks. Not only is that in my Possibility of Sex audiobook, but there's at least 1 chapter in my Mode 1 audiobook where I talk about valuing your placing a high degree of value on your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship. So everybody who was familiar with my books knew that that was my shit. And they start calling him out on it. So just to clarify, I wasn't the first one who called him out on it. It was actually guys who were following me and him. It wasn't the guys who were exclusively following him because they weren't familiar with my work. And it wasn't guys who were exclusively following me because they weren't familiar with AMS. It was guys who were following both of us. Those were the guys that first start calling him out. They was like, dude, you stealing Alan Roger Currie shit, man, and you ain't giving him no shout out. You ain't giving him no credit. And instead of him saying, my bad, that's my bad, I should be giving him credit, instead he came out with this excuse talking about the game is the game is the game. And you can say that was the official starting point of our ongoing beef that has lasted up to this day. Is that instead of just giving me credit and saying, yeah, you're right, I do need to give Alan Roger Currie more. Like, I tell you a simple way this could have been avoided. Real simple way. Is if in one of his 2 books, he got 3 books total, and 2 of his 3 books are dating advice books. His 3rd book is about money. In one of his 2 dating books, if not both of them, here's what he could have done to prevent all this beef that he and I have. He should have said in one of the books, hey, I'm going to tell you guys need to value your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship. And if you want to read a book that's well written, that discusses that in more detail than I could ever discuss it in, you need to pick up dating coach Alan Roger Currie's book called The Possibility of Sex. He should have put that in his book. He should have said, whenever he started talking about the concept of valuing your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, he should have just said, hey, I'm going to tell you guys you should place value on it, but if you want to read about this concept in more detail, then you need to pick up dating coach and book author Alan Roger Currie's book called The Possibility of Sex, because that's over half of what that book is about. That's number 1. Then second thing, he should have said, instead of telling guys that if they use Mode 1, they'll end up going to jail, he should have said, hey, when it comes to the discussion about direct verbal game versus indirect verbal game, I'm in favor of indirect verbal game because I think, there's just more benefits to it. But if you are interested in learning more about direct verbal game, then you should pick up Alan Roger Currie's book, Mode 1. That's a well-written book about the pros and cons of direct verbal game. What's that? Total of maybe 2 paragraphs? If he would have included those 2 paragraphs in each of his books, maybe 1 paragraph in one book and another paragraph in another book, The beef I have with him right now would be over. It would have been over. It would have been over. Would have been over. But he refused to do it. All it would have took is 2 paragraphs. Again, on the subject of valuing your non-sexual time, attention, companionship, he could have included a paragraph in his book where he could have said, hey, I'm going to tell you to place value on your non-sexual time, attention, companionship. But if you want to read about that concept in more detail, I suggest you pick up dating coach Alan Roger Currie's book called The Possibility of Sex. That's pretty much what that book is all about. It's very well written, and you should pick it up. And then on the subject of direct verbal game versus indirect verbal game, he should have said, hey, I'm more of a proponent of indirect verbal game, and I'm not really a fan of direct verbal game, but if you are a fan of direct verbal game, then you need to pick up Alan Roger Currie's book called Mode 1. He lays out his argument for why men should favor direct verbal game. In the story. If he would have done that simple thing, include those 2 paragraphs, the animosity I feel towards him would have been gone 2 years ago. At minimum, a year and a half ago. It would have been gone. But no, see, this is what happened, man. This is what happened. See, when AMS was at a stage, speaking, I was talking about YouTube subscribers and Patreon supporters. See, when AMS was in a stage where I had more YouTube subscribers than him and I had more Patreon supporters than him, that's when he had no problem giving me a shout out and giving me credit. He had no problem. That's when he was still in that period, that's when he did give me shout outs and gave me proper credit attribution at least 2 or 3 times. But here's when he changed. Here's the moment I can tell you when he changed. Is when he got to a point where when he had significantly more YouTube subscribers than me and significantly more Patreon financial supporters than me. That's basically when he said, well, shit, why do I need to give Alan Roger Currie any type of shout out or proper credit attribution? I'm bigger than him. I mean, he didn't actually say, I didn't hear him say those actual words, but I'm saying that's probably what he said to himself. That's probably what he said to himself. I know how people are. That's exactly, because that's happened with a lot of people, not only on YouTube. I'm talking about prominent figures like celebrities and shit. That's what happens with people. See, when people copy someone and then they become bigger than more popular than the person they're copying, they kind of say, well, fuck the originator. That's what they basically end up saying. In one way or another, they basically be like, fuck the originator. I'm more popular than he is or she is. And that's basically what happened with AMS. That's when he stopped giving me credit. Once his YouTube subscribers was significantly higher than mine and his number of Patreon financial supporters was higher than mine, basically that's when he was basically like, well, fuck Alan Roger Currie. I'm bigger than him. I got a bigger fan base than him on YouTube and on Patreon. So why should I be giving him any credit? There's more guys paying attention to me than him. Yeah, I saw where Anthony Johnson did an interview with him, and I saw where George Bruno. Remember in that video I did about my proposed solution for the end of this beef? And I said that he needs to publicly acknowledge that he's taking material from me, talking points from me, and also apologize for telling people that if they use Mode 1, they'll go to jail. And I said he should do that in an interview with Anthony Johnson, which since I did that video, he had an interview with Anthony. He didn't say shit. Another person I suggested he make that acknowledgement and that apology on was an interview with George Bruno. He had an interview with George Bruno. He didn't say shit. And they didn't ask him about me. He didn't bring my name up. They didn't bring my name up. And I have to be honest, man, that was disappointing to me. That was very disappointing to me. There's only 2 people in recent weeks that have called him out other than me. And I mentioned before, that would be C Boogie. C Boogie did a video where he called out AMS for stealing my talking points. Yeah, C Boogie was probably the first other than me to call him out. And then O'Shea was kind of a surprise, but it was a pleasant surprise. Yeah, because O'Shea listened to his interview with Kevin Samuels. O'Shea Duke Jackson called him out. He did a live stream. You can't see it now because I think he took down the live stream now. But either the same night or the next day after Kevin Samuels interviewed AMS, O'Shea called him out. He called him out. I was pleased to hear him call him out. Yeah, O'Shea called him out, man. He called him out as a content thief. He called him out as a content thief. Matter of fact, he called out 2 guys. He called out both AMS and Stephon Clinkscales. Yeah, O'Shea basically said, AMS and Stephon Clinkscales have liberally stole content from Alan Roger Currie, which is the truth. Both of them stole, particularly from my book, The Possibility of Sex. Both of them stole content from my book, The Possibility of Sex, without giving me proper credit attribution. But anyway, my main point for bringing him up again in this video was these 2 guys suggesting that I've done nothing but insult him and or bash him. No, I've laid out facts. That's not synonymous. Laying out facts is not synonymous with bashing someone. Like, here's another fact I pointed out before. Like, I noticed in some of his interviews he's done recently, I'll be reading the comment section, and a few guys have been making comments like, I miss the sleazeball version of AMS. I miss when AMS used to refer to himself as a sleaze. You notice he don't talk about that no more. I was the first one to call him out on that. You notice it's like he's trying to separate himself from his 2018 and early 2019 version of AMS. He's almost trying to act like the 2018 and early 2019 version of AMS don't even exist. Like it never existed. Like he never talks about the whole sleazeball mindset. He don't refer to his listeners, viewers, and followers as the sleazeball gang no more. He don't do that no more. He don't do that no more. As I mentioned before, there's a term in public relations and marketing known as reinventing yourself. Reinventing yourself. That's what he's attempting to do right now. He's attempting to reinvent himself. He's trying to become more palatable to mainstream audiences so that he can gain more mainstream type popularity. That's what he's doing in a nutshell. He's trying to position himself so he can gain more mainstream popularity. And he knows he can't do that if he's associated with being a sleazeball, with blatantly lying to women and misleading and manipulating women and calling them hoes and saying stuff like, I want to fuck these hoes to sleep. He knows he'll never gain mainstream popularity by doing that. But yeah, as far as the guys who want to say to me, Alan, if you continue to keep bringing his name up in your videos, I'm going to unsubscribe. Unsubscribe. Shit. Give me your username. I'll unsubscribe for you. I don't give a fuck. Hey, man, I'm going to tell you something, and then I'm going to wrap up. You want to know one of the people who actually encouraged me to do what I've been doing? It was actually one of the 2 attorneys that I consulted with. Yeah, because I think most of y'all know I consulted with 2 attorneys about. There was 2 people I was going to sue. That I was literally going to take it to as far as suing them. One was this woman named Kim Scott, who wrote this book called Radical Candor. I consulted with 2 attorneys about the possibility of suing her. And I consulted with 2 attorneys about suing Feliciano T. Collins, aka Alpha Male Strategies. And without getting into a long, detailed story, the reason why I'm going forth with lawsuit, among other reasons, number one, lawsuits require a heavy investment of time and money. So like when you file a copyright infringement lawsuit, you're looking at minimum about a 6-month process. I say that's minimum. Unless the person offers to settle. That would be the only exception, is if the person you're suing offers to settle you out of court. But if you go to full litigation, at minimum, you're looking at about 6 months worth of your time invested in that. In some cases, you're looking at as long as a year, 2 years, 3 years. There's copyright infringement cases and plagiarism cases that have gone on as long as 3, 4, 5 years. I was just reading some articles this morning related to that. Yeah, there's some copyright infringement and plagiarism lawsuits that has lasted as long as like 3, 4, 5+ years. So next to time is money. Until you actually win the case, you have to pay for the attorney costs yourself. They don't do pro bono unless you just drop dead poor. I would have to pay for all things associated with court costs and attorney costs myself until I actually win the case. And good attorneys are expensive. So for those asking, Alan, why haven't you sued yet? That would be my brief, simplistic response to why I haven't sued yet. But anyway, what I was going to say is that at least one of the 2 attorneys that I consulted with, he was the one who suggested that I do what I've been doing. He said, you want to know what the next best thing is to filing a lawsuit against somebody who's plagiarized your material? He said, relentlessly keep calling them out on it to the point where you become irritating to them and they want to make amends with you. Yep, that's what one of the 2 attorneys told me. He said, keep calling that person out relentlessly. He said, keep calling them out relentlessly till you get to a point where you become irritating to them and you motivate them to want to make amends with you and make things right with you so you won't continue to be a pest about it. So that's half the reason I'm doing it, is because it was suggested to me by an attorney to do it. And I said that, if you remember back in, I think it was about 15 months ago, I did a video. It was in early 2019. That's when I first started talking about this whole copycat issue. And I said that. I said, if I'm not able to sue people who I feel have plagiarized my material, the next thing I'm going to do is, I said, I'm going to call them out relentlessly. I said, I'm going to call them out relentlessly, non-stop. Non-fucking stop. Facts, baby. Facts. I lay out the facts. I ain't gonna let people get away with revisionist history and blatant lies. I'm not gonna allow people to get away with that. I'm not gonna not gonna allow anybody, particularly referring to people who I feel are copycats / plagiarists of mine, to get away with revisionist history and blatant lies about stuff that took place in the past. I got a memory like an elephant. And I'm going to relentlessly call these motherfuckers out.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
Man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.